TCWEEK cocktail sessions, educational and inspirational talks from experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
How's everyone doing? Oh, wow, can't see anything. If you all leave, then I won't know it, so feel free. First of all, it's an honor for me to be here speaking to you, and it's an honor for Locomotors to be the sponsor tonight, and it's an honor as well to be at the Downtown Project. I have a real love for what's happening here, and we'll talk. Can you hear me? Yeah. Is that better? Yeah, hello. A real love for what's happening down here, and I'll talk about that later. Also, Michael, I'm the guy you've met before and don't recognize probably. I'm from Washington D.C. and I got to tell you, it's an honor to speak after you. There are very few entrepreneurial games in town when it comes to Washington, and he's certainly been one of them. Created a lot of jobs, and as he mentioned, he didn't want to say change the world, but he's changed the way fundamentally education happens, and that's fantastic. So wanted to let you know it's good to have you here as well. So how many people here can tell me where the closest payphone is? I'm serious. Nobody, right? Oh, two. Where's the closest payphone?
It's actually right next to the E.
It's right next to the B.
Across from E, there's an empty lot.
Okay.
And it's got like a payphone, and that's it.
Okay.
And every time I see it, I just think of, I'm on a payphone, ready to call. Like
Right. Is it still a quarter? Does it still cost a quarter?
I don't want to.
Because you don't use it.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah. But how many people have one of these like Star Trek communicators, smartphone? Yeah, because like the payphone's the dumb phone, right? Now, so the phone was invented, really the modern phone was invented in the late 1870s. About the same time the modern automobile was invented, as the sort of the dawn of the second industrial revolution that Henry Ford helped bring in with mass production and production lines. And it's interesting, right, that there's been an electric vehicle since 1888, but we've just seen our first electric car company that seems to be viable. Many of them have gone out of business, and many of the non-electric car companies have gone out of business as well, but our taxpayer dollars have kept them going. So what is it that allows us to go from that dumb phone to this smartphone in 100 years, but fundamentally the vehicle hasn't changed at all? You still have, there's been some incremental technological advances, but we're still on four wheels, we're still on a combustion engine. There's still a steering column, which really, I don't know if you know, is the most deadly part of a vehicle. It's what kills people when they get in accidents. You could drive with a joystick, but you don't, and that's a regulatory thing. Let me back up before I really get into Locomotors, and I want to touch on some of the really relevant points that Michael made as well. Locomotors was, let me back up about Locomotors. Locomotors was founded by a guy named Jay Rogers, who is a really bright guy. Hopefully you all have a chance to meet him sometime. He was a Marine in Afghanistan and Iraq. He was in Iraq at the time. He had the idea for Locomotors, where he unfortunately had two buddies pass away. And part of the frustration he had was, he fundamentally believed that the war had to do with oil, and he was frustrated that the equipment that he and his troops were using was, in many cases, Vietnam-era equipment, because it takes about 30 years to get new vehicles to the field. And so he had this idea for Locomotors that we'll get into, and he told he had become a general's aide, and he said, "General, I have this idea that's going to change the world." And the general said, "You've been over here fighting, way too long. You got to go to business. I'll sign your papers. You got to go to business school though, because you can't just go back into the business world." Now, Jay had chosen to go to the Marines on admit day at Stanford University before he got his MBA. So he'd already, he forewent his tuition to join the Marines at Stanford. So as he's getting out of the Marines, he reapplied to Stanford and didn't get in. And then he applied to Harvard, and he got in and wrote the business plan there at Knights, and won a business plan competition, and then two professors funded the company in 2007 as he was graduating. So it started in Boston and then eventually moved to Phoenix. But the fundamental idea behind Locomotors is, can you imagine, when you used to play with Legos, and you would sort of put different standard pieces together, and if it didn't work, you'd sort of iterate and you might end up with something you never thought you'd have from the beginning. Now imagine doing that with all your friends, with everybody in this room, where different people have different pieces of advice. So sort of ask advice, like we've heard tonight, and share the ideas. Locomotors has done that. We are currently 60,000 people online in 130 countries, and we build vehicles together. And we're able to do it for about 100th the cost of traditional vehicle companies, and we do it 5 times faster. And the first vehicle you may have seen outside that the community developed was about 7,000 people collaborated on it. A guy named Song Ho Kim, a South Korean student, designed the body of it. And there are just under 100 of them on the road today. It's called the Rally Fighter, and they're built in Phoenix, and they're driven primarily in desert south, the desert southwest and regions like that around the world. And that's the idea behind Locomotors is have the world help you design a vehicle and then build and drive it locally. And the way I got interested in Locomotors, I joined in 2011. As Jen mentioned, I was working for Richard Branson at the Carbon War Room. I was the senior portfolio manager, meaning I was looking for profitable solutions to climate change. And at the time, I was working with island nations to help them come off of fossil fuels. Samoa was one example. I was working with the government to over 2 years, go to all of their energy and all of their fuels totally off of fossil fuels, because most islands, they import diesel to generate electricity, and they pay up as much as 40% premium to get it there. Technologies that are available today are a lot more cost effective, and so they had the feedstocks to run their entire island on, but nobody would provide the vehicles to do it, because there weren't enough vehicles to be interesting to a large automotive company. So Jay and I, funny enough, Jay and I were introduced by Shell. They have a great group that's actually trying to fundamentally change the energy paradigm called Game Changer. And they invited us both to a conference in New York. And I told Jay what I was trying to do. And he said, we could just build a micro factory on the island and design a vehicle that runs and build the vehicle locally and use local materials, and it'll cost $3 million total. And this was, a light went off in my head, because I had talked to a lot of vehicle makers, and it was going to be billions of dollars to do that, and they just weren't interested. And so I had met a lot of companies that have great renewable technologies, but I hadn't seen a lot of platforms that could fundamentally change the world. So get back to what the microfactory is. They are about 10 to 20,000 square foot spaces where we put out between 200 and 2,000 vehicles a year. Our second microfactory, we just opened here in the downtown project in Las Vegas, right across the street from the new Zappos headquarters. And we are now talking to, 50 countries, just under 50 countries around the world who have asked us to build a microfactory. Our plan calls for 100 of them over the next 10 years. And so we hope you'll come by and check it out. We're excited to be here. I think what's happening in the downtown project is sort of the leading edge of a trend that we're going to see happen around the world, which is this civic rejuvenation, where it's not necessarily government run, but it's in collaboration with the government. You see it happening in Detroit, and you see it happening in cities around the world. And Locomotors wants to be in every one of those towns where people want to come together and create their own solutions, whether it's from an energy standpoint or a transportation ecosystem, and even more broadly than that. I wanted to invite one of my colleagues, Kate, to come up. This is one of the vehicles that we're developing. We're actually crowdfunding it online right now, but a guy from Portugal, or was Portugal? Is Giannis from?
This one's from
Romania. Giannis is from Romania. Is developing this bike, which is it's called the Cruiser, and you can get it in electric or gas. We're building it down the street, and I want to actually take a picture of all of you with the bike, and then I'm going to put it on my Twitter, and anyone who wants to tag themselves, we're going to do that, because this is part of the community, right? Like, this is a community project. If that's okay with people. If you don't want to be in the picture, let me know. All right. Yep. Wait, can we bring the lights up? Or down, or what? Yeah, there we go. All right. So, yeah, all right. I'm doing a panoramic shot of the bike and the whole crowd. And this will be the birth of the Cruiser in downtown Las Vegas. So, I'm sorry? What is it? It's a motorized bicycle. So that's an electric bicycle. I think we have the gasoline version in the back if you want to check it out on the way out. And you can check it out on locomotors.com. And I will tag, this photo will be online. It will be at Locomotors. And I guess that's really, I mean, I can take questions. Yeah.
All right, turn me on. The mic, just the mic.
I see a couple questions. Right here.
Approximate retail and wholesale price?
Of this particular vehicle? I think it's around 3,500. We're figuring it out. This is still being designed by the community online right now. This is a prototype. And so we don't know, when you look at other electric bikes out there, they're somewhere in the range of 2,000 to 4,000. So I'm just throwing a number out, but it won't be outside the range.
All right.
Does that mean eventually there's going to be like an online portfolio that we'd be able to design in any micro factory around the world? Like, could we pick a design offline that's already been done?
Absolutely. You can design your Rally Fighter online now. There's a configurator, and you build that in Phoenix because Phoenix wanted that vehicle. But right now we have two. We have a motorcycle and the Rally Fighter, but there are about 100,000 different projects online that are all at various stages of development in the community. And I said I was going to get back to what Michael said. We're putting it out there. We're saying, what do you guys? Here's our idea, or give us your idea, and then people work together and iterate until it comes to life.
Wow. Are there any flying vehicles that you've seen?
And I was going to give the Jetsons example, right, with the phone. It's like we're still sort of with the Flintstones car and not the Jetsons car. Yeah, we have like the Jetsons phone.
Right.
There may be, right? There was that sort of CNN hoax I saw recently with a flying vehicle. There may be. If anyone's going to do it, I think some of the engineers, designers, and enthusiasts in our community would be keen.
Cool.
All right, we have a question over here.
Over to your left.
Am I calling them out, or are you calling them out?
To your left.
Okay.
When you're community designing these cars or bikes or whatever, how do you handle feasibility or manufacturability, or is that iterated, or do you have some sort of do you have some experts or mechanical?
Yeah.
So how do you?
So I should have. So our community is made up of four key constituencies. It's designers, engineers, fabricators, and enthusiasts. I'd fall into the enthusiast category because I'm not smart enough to be any of the others. We're like the project manager, and we will go out in real time and ask for experts to give us feedback, and then we sort of iterate based on. You can tune in a live feed and choose if you're interested in mechatronics or if you're interested in just a specific piece of the vehicle, and you can watch and tell us you're doing this right, or I think you should do it this way, and you gain credibility within the community based on your feedback, and we will design the prototypes, or if you have a prototype you're developing in your garage, you can share it with the community. So it's for personal projects, it's for our projects, but we are trying to give people a way to come to market with their own projects as much as we want to do it ourselves.
So as far as the roadworthiness of these vehicles, are they something that is it a car, or is it just OHVs that you can take off-roading?
Oh, no. So the Rally Fighter, which was sort of our proof of concept, right? Because when Jay started this company, people said, there's no way you're going to get, a community is going to get a car on the road. Impossible, especially for such a low cost. But it is 50 state street legal. And the way we did that was you come in and you spend a couple days building it with us in Phoenix. And it then therefore qualifies as a home registered vehicle. I don't know if you guys go over to our and don't get me wrong, it doesn't like 90% of that vehicle, like Legos, are off-the-shelf parts. So there's Honda parts in there, there's a GM motor in there. These parts have all been tested. And we do the testing ourselves. We just don't pay the $30 million that has prohibited small manufacturers from getting into the market. So it's going to be as safe as any other vehicle. I mean, that doesn't mean go and be stupid with it. But you know, we're not going to put people in vehicles that we haven't put through rigorous testing.
All right, there's a question back here.
Disruption has already been mentioned,
Yep.
and you mentioned the timeline as well. What's your feeling about Detroit?
I think what's happening, I don't know, show of hands, who's been to Detroit in the last couple of years? Okay, it's amazing what's happening there. You go to these old automotive factories and there are, there are urban farms popping up. There's an entrepreneurial culture, much like what's happening here in downtown Las Vegas. I don't know if you're asking what my feeling about the city is or about the automakers, but my feeling about the city is we would love to be there because the spirit and the energy are and the knowledge of so much of the population are right up our alley. Local is what we're about. As far as the auto manufacturers, we're not going to put them out of business, but we're going to be a part of the. We're going to be a part of the mix. With 100 microfactories putting out between 200 and 2,000 units a year of whatever vehicle happens to be interesting to a local region, plus some other products that we make that they're interested in. We'll be a part of the mix. And we've done work. Our community does work for big auto manufacturers. So BMW hired our community to do some work, and we run a challenge. Peterbilt trucks, Optimus Prime from the Transformers had to get redesigned to meet EPA 14 standards. So they came to us, our community, because that's such a iconic looking vehicle. They wanted, like Michael was saying, they wanted feedback from their consumer base to say this is a good idea or this isn't. And I don't know if you saw the Domino's pizza delivery vehicle that got advertised for a while. Our community, that was our community working on that because that was the most inefficient part of their process from door to door. So people thought the auto manufacturers would hate us, but it turns out they can do R&D for 100 times cheaper than they've been able to so far. And I don't think that's the future of our business, but it's helped us finance our way to this point because you know what, VCs are a lot more interested in non-manufacturing businesses or have been for a long time. They may come around, but we found another way to finance the business so far.
All right, we have about 2 more questions that we'll take. One is right here.
Hi.
Hey.
You mentioned other products. So are you making only vehicles, or are you interested in, since you have a micro factory, to make several different mechanical items for people?
It's a good question. So yes, we just announced a large contract with the Army, the Rapid Equipping Force, where we're building an online community for solutions for soldiers, for gear, and we'll be rapid prototyping that on forward operating bases. So it might be a humanitarian mission or a specific enemy, and if you go to armycocreate.com, you can check that out, and anybody can participate. So gear is one thing. And then in the coming weeks and months, we're going to be announcing some other big, complex mechanical goods industries where we will become players.
All right. Final question in the back, over here.
Hey, Justin. You started out talking about telephones.
Yes.
And then you threw a question out there, and then you changed everything really quick.
Yep.
And I believe
Caught
the
you off
answer
guard.
was what made the difference on the telephones was batteries. And so I wanted to ask you, you guys are doing electric vehicles. Do you have, what battery company are you using? What type of batteries and so forth?
You know what? The question is, what battery company won't we work with? If you think about it, the big automakers, they either develop a technology internally or they buy one technology and they continue to invest in it. We know of 8 or 9 battery companies that don't know how to build a car and are never going to get bought by a big OEM. And so the way we see it is our community is going to work and is just starting to work on things like an open source battery management system. And universities want vehicles that they could put any battery into as opposed to having to deconstruct something that's, that they're buying from an auto manufacturer. So we're trying to be open to technology as it continues to develop, so that maybe people start building to a spec as opposed to the other way around. Maybe that's a long way of me saying we haven't decided yet, because the community's working on it, right? They're going to tell us, and then they're going to vote on each other's ideas, and then they're going to all come around the one that they think is the best. I hope that wasn't too roundabout, but there isn't one battery company we're working with.
All right, so the great news is that Local Motors is local. So if you have more questions, they're right down the street. Thank you so
Thanks a
much.
lot. Thank you.
All right.